Ethan Cole sat frozen across from a woman who had just called his daughter baggage. Not a complication, not a challenge. Baggage. The word landed like a slap, and for a moment all he could hear was the clatter of silverware around them and the slow burn of anger rising in his chest. He'd promised his sister he'd try, one blind date, just one. But sitting there under the dim restaurant lighting, watching this stranger smile like she'd said something reasonable, Ethan realized he'd made a terrible mistake. His daughter wasn't baggage, she was everything. And if you couldn't see that, you didn't deserve a seat at his table. But here's the thing about rock bottom. Sometimes it's exactly where you need to be to find something real. If you've ever felt invisible, misunderstood, or like you're one bad date away from giving up entirely, stay with me. This is Ethan's story, and it doesn't end where you think. Drop a comment with the city you're watching from, hit that like button, and let's see how far this story travels. Ethan Cole had exactly 12 minutes before he had to pick up Ava from his sister's place, and he was spending 11 of them wondering why the hell he'd agreed to this. The restaurant was nice. Too nice, actually. The kind of place with cloth napkins and waiters who refilled your water before you realized it was half empty. Soft jazz drifted from hidden speakers, and every table around him seemed occupied by couples who looked like they actually wanted to be there. Ethan didn't. He checked his watch again, still 12 minutes, maybe 13 now. Time had a way of slowing down when you were dreading something. Sorry I'm late. He looked up. A woman in a sleek black dress was sliding into the seat across from him, phone in one hand, designer purse in the other. She had sharp features, perfect makeup, and the kind of confidence that came from always being the most interesting person in the room. No problem, Ethan said, standing halfway before realizing she was already seated. He sat back down, awkwardly. I'm Monica. She extended a hand across the table. Ethan. He shook it. Her grip was firm, businesslike. Your sister didn't mention you were this tall, Monica said, flagging down a waiter without breaking eye contact. White wine, please, Sauvignon Blanc if you have it. The waiter nodded and disappeared. Ethan shifted in his seat. She didn't mention much about you either. Typical, Monica said, laughing. It wasn't a warm laugh. It was the kind you gave when you were performing friendliness rather than feeling it. So, software engineer, right? Yeah, I work remotely mostly. Keeps things flexible. For your daughter? It wasn't a question. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. Yeah, for Ava. Monica's smile didn't falter, but something in her eyes shifted. How old? 6. That's sweet. She said it the way people say that's interesting when they mean the opposite. Must be tough doing it all on your own. It's not tough, Ethan said. It's just life. The waiter returned with Monica's wine. She took a sip, made a face like it wasn't quite what she'd hoped for, then set the glass down. I admire that, she said. Single parents. It takes a lot of sacrifice. Ethan nodded slowly. Something about the way she said sacrifice felt wrong, like she was talking about something noble but tragic, something to be pitied. Do you see her mom much? Monica asked. Like shared custody or... She passed away. The words came out flat. Ethan had said them enough times that they'd lost most of their weight. Not all of it, but most. Monica's face shifted into something appropriately somber. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's okay. How long ago? 4 years? Wow. Monica leaned back, swirling her wine. And you haven't dated since? Ethan felt his shoulders tense. Not really. Haven't had much reason to. Well, that makes sense, Monica said, nodding like she'd just solved a puzzle. You've been focused on your daughter. That's really admirable, Ethan, honestly. Thanks, he said, though he didn't feel particularly admired. He felt dissected. So what made you say yes to this? Monica asked. Your sister must have really twisted your arm. She did, Ethan admitted. She thought I needed to get out more. And do you? Probably. Monica smiled. Well, here we are. Here we are, Ethan thought. He glanced at his watch again. 10 minutes. So tell me about you, he said, trying to shift the focus. What do you do? Marketing consultant, Monica said. I work with luxury brands mostly, travel a lot. New York, London, sometimes Milan if the client's big enough. Sounds exciting. It is. She leaned forward, eyes bright. I love it. I mean, it's demanding, don't get me wrong, but I'm not really the settle down in the suburbs type, you know? Ethan nodded. He absolutely knew he was very much the settle down in the suburbs type. What about kids? Ethan asked. You want them someday? Monica hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. Maybe, she said carefully. Down the line, way down the line. I'm 34, so I've got time. And honestly, I'm not sure I'm cut out for it. I like my freedom. That's fair, Ethan said. I mean, don't get me wrong, Monica added quickly. I think kids are great, for people who want them, but it's a huge commitment, right? Your whole life changes. It does. And dating with a kid? Monica trailed off, shaking her head. I can't even imagine. That's got to be complicated. Ethan's jaw tightened again. It's not that complicated. Come on, Monica said, laughing. You can't tell me it doesn't add a layer of difficulty. I mean, you've got to think about how someone fits into your daughter's life, not just yours. That's a lot of pressure. It's not pressure, Ethan said quietly. It's just part of the deal. Monica tilted her head, studying him. You're very protective of her. She's my daughter. Of course. I just mean, some guys, they kind of compartmentalize, you know? They keep their dating life separate. But it sounds like you don't do that. I don't. Why not? Ethan set his water glass down a little harder than he meant to. Because she's not something I compartmentalize. She's not a side project. She's my life. Monica blinked. I didn't mean it like that. I know, Ethan said, but he didn't believe her. The waiter appeared, mercifully, with menus. They both ordered without much thought. Ethan picked the first thing he saw. Monica asked 3 questions about the salmon before settling on a salad. When the waiter left, the silence between them felt heavier. Look, Monica said, softer now, I didn't mean to offend you. I think it's great that you're so dedicated. I guess I'm trying to figure out where someone like me would fit into that. And? Ethan asked. Monica looked down at her wine. Honestly? I don't know if I would. Ethan nodded. At least she was being honest. I'm not looking for someone to play stepmom, he said, but I'm also not looking for someone who sees Ava as an inconvenience. I don't see her as an inconvenience, Monica said quickly. Then what do you see her as? Monica hesitated, and in that hesitation, Ethan saw everything he needed to know. She's a factor, Monica said finally. A big one. And I think if we're being realistic, Ethan, you have to admit that dating someone with a kid is different. It's more complicated. There's more baggage. There it was. Baggage. Ethan felt something cold settle in his chest. He didn't say anything right away. He just looked at Monica, really looked at her, and realized she had no idea what she'd just said. Or maybe she did, and she just didn't care. She's not baggage, Ethan said quietly. Monica's eyes widened. I didn't mean it like, yes, you did. Ethan, she's not baggage, he repeated louder now. She's a 6-year-old kid who lost her mom. She's smart and funny and kind, and she deserves better than to be talked about like she's some burden I'm dragging around. Monica's face flushed. I wasn't saying that. You were, Ethan said. He stood up, pulling his wallet from his pocket. He dropped 2 20s on the table. I'm sorry, this was a mistake. Ethan, wait. But he was already walking away. He pushed through the restaurant doors and out into the cool night air, his heart pounding. He felt angry, embarrassed, relieved, mostly relieved. He stood on the sidewalk for a moment, letting the noise of the city wash over him. Cars honked. People walked past, laughing and talking. The world kept moving, indifferent to his disaster of a date. His phone buzzed. His sister. How's it going? Ethan typed back. Leaving now. Don't set me up again. 3 dots appeared immediately. That bad? Worse. He pocketed his phone and started walking toward his car. He had 9 minutes now, plenty of time. And then he stopped. He didn't know why. Maybe it was the adrenaline still buzzing in his veins. Maybe it was the fact that he'd driven 40 minutes to get here, and the idea of going home with nothing but humiliation felt unbearable. Or maybe it was the woman sitting alone at a table near the window, reading a book with a glass of red wine in front of her. She looked up, just for a second, and their eyes met. Ethan looked away quickly. He didn't know her. He had no reason to stare. But something about her, calm, unhurried, content in her solitude, made him pause. He checked his watch. 8 minutes. Before he could talk himself out of it, he walked back inside. The woman glanced up again as he approached. She had warm brown eyes, dark hair pulled into a loose bun, and the kind of face that looked like it smiled often. "Hi," Ethan said. "I'm sorry to bother you." She closed her book, one finger marking her place. "You're not bothering me. I had a really terrible date, and I saw you sitting here, and I thought—" He stopped. "Actually, I don't know what I thought. This is weird. I'm sorry." The woman smiled. "It's not weird. It's a little weird." "Okay, it's a little weird," she admitted. "But I've had terrible dates too. Want to sit?" Ethan blinked. "Really?" "Sure." She gestured to the empty chair across from her. "I'm Claire." "Ethan." He sat down, feeling strangely like he'd just stepped off a ledge and found solid ground. Claire set her book aside. "So, terrible date. Scale of 1 to 10, how bad?" 15. She laughed. It was a real laugh, unguarded and bright. "That's impressive. What happened?" Ethan hesitated. "She called my daughter baggage." Claire's smile faded. "She what?" "Yeah." "And you left? Immediately?" "Good," Claire said firmly. "You should have thrown your drink at her first, but leaving works too." Ethan smiled despite himself. "I don't think assault was the right move." "Debatable," Claire said. She took a sip of her wine, studying him. "You're a single dad." "Is it that obvious?" "You just defended your daughter to a stranger in a restaurant." "Yeah, it's obvious." Ethan laughed. "Fair enough. How old is she?" 6. "Her name's Ava." "That's a beautiful name." "Thanks." Ethan felt something loosen in his chest. "She's everything, honestly. I know that sounds cliché, but it's true." "It doesn't sound cliché," Claire said. "It sounds honest." Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, and realized he felt lighter than he had in weeks, months maybe. "What about you?" he asked. "What brings you here alone on a Friday night?" "I like eating alone," Claire said simply. "I get to read, think, decompress. It's nice." "No terrible dates?" "Not tonight," she said, smiling. "Though I've had my share." "Yeah?" "Oh yeah. There was the guy who spent an hour talking about his ex-wife. The guy who brought his mom. The guy who asked if I wanted kids before we even ordered appetizers." Ethan winced. "That's rough." "It's fine," Claire said. "You learn to laugh at it eventually." "Do you?" Ethan asked. "Want kids, I mean." Claire paused. "I like kids. I work with them, actually. I'm a teacher." "What grade?" "First." Ethan's heart did something strange. "Ava's in first grade." Claire's eyes widened slightly. "Small world." "Yeah." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. The restaurant hummed around them, but it felt distant, like they were in their own small bubble. "Can I ask you something?" Claire said. "Sure." "Why'd you come back inside?" Ethan looked at her. "Honestly, I don't know. I saw you sitting here, and you looked like someone who wouldn't call a 6-year-old baggage." Claire smiled. "Low bar." "You'd be surprised." "Maybe," Claire said, "but I'm glad you came back." "Me too." Ethan's phone buzzed. His sister again. "Where are you?" "Ava's asking for you." He typed back. "On my way. 5 minutes." He stood up reluctantly. "I have to go." "Your daughter?" "Yeah." Claire nodded. "Of course." Ethan hesitated. Can I get your number?" Claire looked at him for a long moment. Then she pulled a pen from her purse and wrote on a napkin. "Here," she said, handing it to him. Ethan looked down at the neat handwriting. A phone number. And below it, one word. Claire. "Thank you," he said. Don't mention it." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Hey, Claire." "Yeah?" "Thanks for not making this night a total disaster," she smiled. "Any time." Ethan walked out of the restaurant for the second time that night, but this time he wasn't angry or embarrassed. He was hopeful, and that was something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Ava was sitting on the front porch when Ethan pulled up, her chow legs swinging off the edge of the step. His sister, Jenna, stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You're late," Jenna said as Ethan climbed out of the car. "I know. I'm sorry." Ava jumped up and ran to him. "Daddy!" Ethan scooped her up, holding her tight. She smelled like lavender shampoo and the faint sweetness of whatever snack Jenna had given her. "Hey, Bug," he said. "Did you have fun with Aunt Jenna?" "We watched a movie," Ava said, "and she let me have ice cream." Ethan shot Jenna a look. "Ice cream? It's Friday," Jenna said defensively. "She was good." Ethan sighed. "Thanks for watching her." "Any time." Jenna stepped closer, lowering her voice. "So? How was Monica?" Ethan set Ava down. "Terrible." Jenna's face fell. "That bad?" "Worse." "What happened?" "I'll tell you later," Ethan said. He took Ava's hand. "Come on, Bug. Let's go home." Ava waved at Jenna as they walked to the car. "Bye, Aunt Jenna." "Bye, sweetheart," Jenna called, then quieter, to Ethan. "Call me tomorrow." Ethan nodded. The drive home was quiet. Ava chattered about the movie she'd watched, something about talking animals and a princess, and Ethan listened with half his attention while the other half replayed the night. Monica's face when he walked away. Claire's smile when she handed him her number. The way she'd looked at him. Really looked at him. Like he was worth listening to. "Daddy?" Ethan glanced in the rear-view mirror. "Yeah, Bug?" "Are you sad?" His chest tightened. "No, sweetheart. I'm not sad." "You look sad." "I'm just tired," Ethan said. "But I'm happy. I promise." Ava seemed satisfied with that. She went back to humming the song from her movie, and Ethan focused on the road. When they got home, Ava went straight to her room to grab her stuffed rabbit. Ethan stood in the kitchen, staring at the napkin with Claire's number on it. He should text her. He shouldn't text her. He had no idea what to say. Before he could overthink it, he pulled out his phone and typed, "Hi, it's Ethan, from the restaurant. Thanks again for tonight." He hit send before he could second-guess himself. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. "Hi, Ethan. I'm glad you texted. How's Ava?" Ethan smiled. "She's good. Asking why I look sad, even though I'm not. Kids are perceptive like that. Yeah, too perceptive sometimes. That's not a bad thing." "I guess not." There was a pause. Then, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you regret coming back inside?" Ethan thought about it. He thought about Monica, about the way the night had started. And then he thought about Claire sitting at that table with her book and her wine, looking at him like he wasn't broken. "Not even a little bit," he typed. "Good. Me neither." Ethan leaned against the counter, still smiling. "Daddy?" Ava appeared in the doorway, clutching her rabbit. "Can you read me a story?" "Of course, Bug." Ethan pocketed his phone. "Go pick one out. I'll be right there." Ava darted off, and Ethan followed. Later, after Ava had fallen asleep mid-sentence during her 3rd book, Ethan sat on the edge of her bed and watched her breathe. She wasn't baggage, she was everything. And maybe, just maybe, there was someone out there who understood that. Ethan woke up Saturday morning to Ava jumping on his bed. "Daddy, wake up! You said we could go to the park!" He groaned, pulling the pillow over his face. "I said maybe." "You said yes," Ava insisted, tugging at the pillow. "You promised." Ethan cracked one eye open. Sunlight was streaming through the curtains, and Ava's face was inches from his, her eyes wide and hopeful. "What time is it?" he mumbled. 7:30. "Ava, it's Saturday. Normal people sleep in on Saturday." "But you promised." Ethan sighed. There was no winning this argument. There never was. "Fine," he said, sitting up. "Go brush your teeth and put on pants." Ava squealed and ran out of the room. Ethan rubbed his face, trying to shake off the grogginess. His phone was on the nightstand, and he reached for it instinctively. One new message from Claire. "Good morning. Hope you and Ava have a great Saturday." Ethan smiled despite his exhaustion. He typed back, "Morning. She's already got me heading to the park." "You?" The reply came quickly. "Grocery shopping, living dangerously." Ethan laughed. "Very dangerous. Watch out for the produce section." "I will. Have fun at the park." "Thanks." He set the phone down, still smiling. He'd texted Claire a few times since Friday night. Nothing deep, just casual conversation, but every message felt easy, natural, like talking to someone he'd known for years instead of 2 days. "Daddy!" Ava yelled from the bathroom. "I can't find my shoes." "Which shoes?" "The pink ones." "Check under your bed." Ethan dragged himself out of bed and into the kitchen. He made coffee, poured Ava a bowl of cereal, and tried to remember where he'd put his own shoes. By the time they got to the park, it was almost 9. The playground was already packed with kids climbing on the jungle gym, swinging on swings, and screaming at decibels that shouldn't be humanly possible. Ava took off running the second they arrived, heading straight for the slide. "Stay where I can see you," Ethan called after her. She waved without looking back. Ethan found a bench near the edge of the playground and sat down, coffee in hand. He watched Ava climb the ladder, slide down, then immediately run back to do it again. She was fearless in a way that both terrified and amazed him. His phone buzzed. "How's the park?" "Claire." Ethan glanced at Ava, then typed, loud, chaotic. "Perfect. Sounds about right. Can I ask you something?" Ethan's stomach did a weird flip. "Sure, do you want to get coffee sometime?" "Like actual coffee, not just texting about it." Ethan stared at the message. His first instinct was to say yes. His second instinct was to panic. He liked Claire. That much was obvious. But liking someone and actually dating them were two very different things. And the last time he'd tried dating, it had ended with someone calling his daughter baggage. But Claire wasn't Monica. Claire had asked about Ava. She'd listened when he talked about her. She hadn't flinched or changed the subject. Ethan typed, "I'd like that." "Yeah?" "Yeah." "When are you free?" Ethan thought about his schedule. Work was flexible, but Ava's wasn't. School, homework, dinner, bedtime. His life ran on a strict routine, and breaking it felt risky. "Tuesday afternoon? I can do around 2 if you're free. 2 works. There's a coffee shop on Maple Street. Do you know it? The one with the blue awning?" "That's the one." "Perfect. See you then." Ethan set his phone down and exhaled. He'd just agreed to a date, a real one, with someone who seemed genuinely interested in him, and terrifyingly, he was looking forward to it. "Daddy, watch!" Ethan looked up just in time to see Ava launch herself off the swing, landing in a heap on the mulch. He was on his feet in seconds. "Ava, are you okay?" She sat up grinning. "Did you see? I jumped really far." Ethan's heart was still racing. "Yeah, I saw. Don't do that again." "Why not?" "Because you're going to give me a heart attack." Ava rolled her eyes and ran back to the swings. Ethan sat down, pressing a hand to his chest. Parenthood was exhausting. By the time they got home, it was almost noon. Ava was covered in dirt and sweat, and Ethan was ready for a nap. "Go take a bath," he told her. "But I'm not dirty." Ethan raised an eyebrow. Ava looked down at herself. "Okay, maybe a little dirty. Bath, now." She trudged off, and Ethan collapsed on the couch. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was Jenna. "So, are you going to tell me what happened with Monica, or do I have to guess?" Ethan groaned. He'd forgotten he owed her an explanation. She was awful. Called Ava baggage. "What? Are you serious?" "Dead serious. I'm going to kill her. Don't." "I already left." "Good. You should have thrown your drink at her first." Ethan laughed. Claire had said the exact same thing. "Funny you say that. Someone else suggested the same thing." "Who?" Ethan hesitated. Then, "I met someone else. At the restaurant." The 3 dots appeared immediately. "Excuse me?" "Tell me everything." Ethan smiled. "Her name's Claire. We talked for a bit after Monica left. She's a teacher, 1st grade. And I'm seeing her Tuesday." Ethan Coles sighed. "You have a date?" "I guess I do. I'm so proud of you I could cry." "Don't cry, it's just coffee." "It's not just coffee. This is huge." Ethan rolled his eyes, but he was smiling. Jenna had been on his case about dating for months. Maybe now she'd finally back off. "I'll let you know how it goes. You better." Ava emerged from the bathroom an hour later, hair still damp, wearing mismatched pajamas. "It's the middle of the day," Ethan said. "So? So you can't wear pajamas all day?" Why not? Ethan didn't have a good answer for that. Fine. But if we go anywhere, you're changing. Ava shrugged and flopped onto the couch next to him. What are we doing today? I don't know. What do you want to do? Can we watch a movie? Sure. Which one? The one with the princess and the dragon. Ethan groaned. We've seen that one 100 times. So, it's good. Fine, Ethan said, grabbing the remote. But I'm picking next time. Ava snuggled into his side and Ethan hit play. The movie started and within 10 minutes, Ava was completely engrossed. Ethan's mind wandered. He thought about Tuesday, about Claire, about what he was going to say, how he was going to act, whether he'd completely screw it up. Daddy? Yeah, Bug? Do you like someone? Ethan froze. What? You keep smiling at your phone, Ava said, not looking away from the TV. Do you like someone? Ethan's brain scrambled for an answer. Maybe. Why? Ava shrugged. Aunt Jenna said you should get a girlfriend. Did she now? She said you're lonely. Ethan's chest tightened. I'm not lonely, Ava. I have you. But you don't have a grown-up to talk to, Ava said, matter of fact. Aunt Jenna says grown-ups need other grown-ups. Ethan didn't know whether to laugh or call his sister and yell at her. Aunt Jenna talks too much. So do you like someone? Ava pressed. Ethan sighed. Yeah, maybe. I don't know yet. What's her name? Claire. Is she nice? I think so. Ava seemed satisfied with that. She turned back to the movie, and Ethan exhaled. Kids really were too perceptive. Tuesday came faster than Ethan expected. He spent the morning working, the early afternoon picking out an outfit like he was 16 again, and the drive to the coffee shop trying not to overthink everything. Claire was already there when he arrived, sitting at a small table near the window. She was wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater, her hair down this time, and she looked up when he walked in. Hi, she said, standing. Hi. Ethan suddenly felt underdressed in his flannel and jeans. Sorry, am I late? No, I'm early. Habit. She smiled. Do you want to order something? They got in line together. Ethan ordered a black coffee. Claire got a latte with oat milk. Fancy, Ethan said. I like what I like, Claire said, shrugging. They sat down at the table, and for a moment neither of them said anything. It wasn't uncomfortable, exactly, just uncertain. So, Claire said finally, how have you been? Good, busy. Ava had a meltdown this morning because I made her wear socks. Claire laughed. Socks are a big deal in first grade. Apparently. Does she go to school around here? Claire asked. Yeah, Maplewood Elementary. Do you know it? Claire's face changed, just slightly. Yeah, I know it. Small world, Ethan said. Really small, Claire murmured. She took a sip of her latte, and Ethan got the feeling there was something she wasn't saying. What about you? He asked. Where do you teach? Claire set her cup down. Actually, I teach at Maplewood. Ethan blinked. Wait, you... Yeah. That's, Ethan didn't know how to finish that sentence. That's really small world. It is. Looked at him, and there was something careful in her expression. Do you know who Ava's teacher is? Ethan's stomach dropped. Not yet. The school year just started, and I haven't been to orientation. Why? Claire bit her lip. What's Ava's last name? Cole. Why? Claire's face went pale. Ethan. What? I'm Ava's teacher. The words hung in the air between them. Ethan stared at her. You're... What? I'm her teacher, Claire said quietly. Ms. Hartley. First grade. Room 12. Ethan felt like the ground had just shifted beneath him. You're serious. I'm serious. But how? I mean, what are the odds? I don't know, Claire said. But here we are. Ethan leaned back in his chair trying to process this. Claire was Ava's teacher, the woman he'd met at the restaurant, the woman he'd been texting all weekend. The woman he was currently on a date with was his daughter's teacher. This is... He trailed off. Complicated, Claire finished. Yeah. They sat in silence for a moment. Ethan didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it. Part of him wanted to leave before this got any messier. I should have realized sooner, Claire said. When you said her name was Ava, I should have put it together, but I didn't look at the class roster closely enough. And it's okay, Ethan said. I didn't know either. But now we do. Yeah. Claire looked at him, her expression unreadable. So what do we do? Ethan didn't have an answer. He liked Claire. He really liked her. But this was his daughter's teacher. There were rules about this kind of thing, weren't there? I don't know, he admitted. Claire nodded slowly. I've been in this situation before. Sort of. Yeah? A few years ago, I went on a date with a parent from my class. It seemed harmless at first, but then it got complicated. He got upset when I wouldn't prioritize his kid in class, started showing up unannounced, made everything awkward. What happened? I ended it, but not before it almost cost me my job. Claire's voice was tight. My principal sat me down and told me that dating a student's parent created a conflict of interest, that if I wasn't careful, it could look like favoritism. Or worse. Ethan's chest felt heavy. So you're saying we can't? I'm saying it's complicated, Claire said. And I have to think about Ava. She's my student. That has to come first. I get that, Ethan said. And he did. But it didn't make it any easier. Claire looked down at her latte. I like you, Ethan. I do. But I can't risk my career. And I can't risk making things weird for Ava. So what are you saying? Claire met his eyes. I'm saying we should wait. Wait? Until the school year's over. Until Ava's not my student anymore. Ethan's heart sank. That's 9 months. I know. Claire, I'm sorry, she said. I really am. But I can't do this halfway. Either we wait or we don't do it at all. Ethan wanted to argue. He wanted to tell her that 9 months was too long, that they could figure it out, that it didn't have to be this complicated. But he looked at her face, at the way her jaw was set, and he knew she wasn't going to change her mind. Okay, he said quietly. Claire blinked. Okay? Yeah, we'll wait. You're sure? No, Ethan said honestly, but you're right. Ava comes first. Claire's expression softened. Thank you. They sat there for a while longer, finishing their coffee in a silence that felt both heavy and strangely hopeful. When they finally left, Claire walked him to his car. I'll see you at drop-off, she said. Yeah. Ethan opened his car door, then paused. Hey, Claire. Yeah? This isn't over, right? I mean, we're not just done? Claire smiled. We're not done. Good. Ethan drove home in a daze. He'd just agreed to wait 9 months for someone he'd only known for 4 days. It was insane. It was reckless. It was also the most hopeful he'd felt in years. When he got home, Ava was at the kitchen table, coloring. How was your day? Ethan asked. Good. I drew a picture of you. Ethan looked at the paper. He was a stick figure with disproportionately large arms and no nose. It's perfect, he said. Ava beamed. I know. Ethan sat down next to her, watching as she colored. His phone buzzed. I'm really glad we met, Ethan, even if the timing's terrible. Ethan smiled. Me too. See you Monday. See you Monday. Ava looked up. Who are you texting? No one, Ethan said. You're smiling again. Am I? Yep. Ava went back to her coloring. You do that a lot now. Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he just sat there watching his daughter draw and let himself smile. Monday morning came with the usual chaos. Ava couldn't find her backpack. Ethan couldn't find his keys. Breakfast was a granola bar eaten in the car. By the time they pulled up to Maplewood Elementary, Ethan's nerves were humming. He was about to see Claire as Ava's teacher. Not as the woman he'd had coffee with, not as the woman he was waiting 9 months for, as Ms. Hartley. Come on, Daddy, Ava said, tugging at his hand. Ethan followed her through the front doors and down the hallway. Room 12 was at the end, and the door was propped open. Claire was standing near the door, greeting students as they came in. She was wearing a blue dress and a cardigan, her hair pulled back, and she looked every bit the professional teacher. Good morning, Ava, she said warmly. Good morning, Ms. Hartley. Ava ran inside without a second glance. Claire's eyes met Ethan's. "Good morning, Mr. Cole." "Morning," Ethan said. His voice came out rougher than he intended. "Ava's settling in well," Claire said. "She's a sweet kid." "Thanks." There was a beat of silence. Another parent walked past, and Claire stepped back slightly. "Have a good day," she said. "You too." Ethan turned and walked away, his chest tight. This was going to be harder than he thought. Over the next few weeks, drop-off became a strange kind of torture. Every morning, Ethan would walk Ava to room 12. Every morning, Claire would smile and say something polite. And every morning, Ethan would leave feeling like he'd just survived something. They didn't text as much. It felt wrong, somehow. Like crossing a line they'd both agreed not to cross. But every now and then, Claire would send him something small. Ava did great on her spelling test today. She made a new friend at recess. She told me her favorite animal is a penguin. Thought you should know. And Ethan would smile and type back something equally small. "That's great. Thanks for letting me know. She loves penguins, has since she was 3. It wasn't much, but it was enough. One afternoon, Ethan got a call from the school. "Mr. Cole, this is Claire Hartley, Ava's teacher." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Is she okay?" "She's fine," Claire said quickly. "But she had a little incident at recess. Another student pushed her, and she scraped her knee. The nurse cleaned it up, but I wanted to let you know." "Is she upset?" "A little, but she's okay. She's in the classroom now, resting." "I can come get her if—" "That's not necessary," Claire said. "But if you want to talk to her, I can put her on." "Please." There was a shuffling sound, and then Ava's voice. "Daddy? Hey, Bug, I heard you got hurt." "It's not that bad," Ava said. "Ms. Hartley gave me a Band-Aid with stars on it." Ethan smiled despite himself. "That's good. Are you okay?" "Yeah, the other kid said sorry." "Good. Can I stay at school?" "If you want to." "Okay, bye, Daddy." "Bye, Bug." There was another shuffle, and then Claire was back. "She's tough." "Yeah," Ethan said. "She is. I'll keep an eye on her." "Thanks, Claire." There was a pause. "You're welcome, Ethan." She hung up, and Ethan sat there staring at his phone. 9 months suddenly felt like forever. October arrived with cooler mornings and the kind of golden light that made everything look softer than it was. Ethan had fallen into a rhythm with drop-off. He'd walk Ava to room 12, exchange a polite greeting with Claire, and leave before the ache in his chest became unbearable. It was fine. It was manageable. It was driving him crazy. "Daddy, you're squeezing my hand too hard," Ava said one morning as they walked down the hallway. Ethan loosened his grip. "Sorry, Bug. Are you nervous?" "No. Why would I be nervous?" Ava shrugged. "You always look nervous when we get to my classroom." Ethan didn't have a good response to that. He was saved by the sight of room 12's open door. Claire was organizing papers at her desk. She looked up when they walked in, and her smile was warm but carefully professional. "Good morning, Ava." "Morning, Ms. Hartley." Ava ran to her cubby, already chattering with another girl about something involving stickers. Claire stood and walked over to Ethan. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Ethan's stomach tightened. "Sure. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," Claire said quickly. "I just wanted to let you know we're having parent-teacher conferences next week. I have you down for Thursday at 4:30. Does that still work?" "Yeah, that's fine." "Great." Claire glanced at Ava, then back at Ethan. "She's doing really well, by the way. I think you'll be happy with what I have to share." "Good. That's good." They stood there for a beat too long. Another parent walked in, breaking the moment. "I'll see you next week," Claire said. "Yeah, next week." Ethan left feeling like he'd just run a marathon. When Thursday came, Ethan showed up at the school 10 minutes early. The hallways were crowded with parents waiting for their conference slots, and Ethan found a bench near room 12 to sit on. At exactly 4:30, the door opened, and a mother with 2 kids in tow walked out. Claire appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Cole?" Ethan stood. "That's me." Claire gestured him inside. The classroom looked different without kids in it. Quieter. The desks were arranged in neat clusters, and the walls were covered in student artwork. "Have a seat," Claire said, motioning to a small table near her desk. Ethan sat. Claire pulled out a folder with Ava's name on it and set it between them. "So," she said, "Ava's doing great. She's one of the strongest readers in the class, and her math skills are solid. She participates, she's kind to the other kids, and she follows directions well." "That's good to hear," Ethan said. "There's one thing I want to mention, though," Claire said, her tone shifting slightly. "She's been a little quieter lately, not in a concerning way, but I've noticed she doesn't raise her hand as much as she used to." Ethan frowned. "Quieter how?" "She still engages when I call on her, but she's not volunteering answers like she did at the beginning of the year. I'm wondering if something's going on at home." Ethan felt a flicker of defensiveness. "Nothing's going on. Everything's fine." Claire's expression softened. "I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong, Ethan. I just want to make sure she's okay." Ethan exhaled. "I don't know. She seems fine to me. Happy, even." "She probably is," Claire said. "But sometimes kids pick up on things adults don't realize they're showing. Stress, distraction, that kind of thing." Ethan looked at her. "Are you saying I'm stressed?" "I'm saying you're human," Claire said gently. "And being a single parent is hard. I see it every day." Ethan didn't know what to say to that. He wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but she wasn't. "I'll talk to her," he said finally. "That's all I'm suggesting," Claire said. "Just check in, see if there's anything on her mind." Ethan nodded. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down between them. "How are you doing?" Claire asked quietly. Ethan looked at her, surprised. "I'm fine. Are you?" "Claire, I know we're not supposed to talk about this here," she said, "but I'm asking anyway. How are you?" Ethan wanted to lie. He wanted to say he was fine, that everything was fine, that waiting wasn't killing him. But he was tired of lying. "It's hard," he admitted. "Seeing you every day and not being able to... I don't know. It's just hard." Claire's eyes softened. "I know." "Do you?" "Yeah," she said. "I do." They looked at each other, and for a moment Ethan forgot they were in a classroom. He forgot about the rules, the waiting, the careful distance they'd been maintaining. Then the door opened, and another parent poked their head in. "Sorry, am I early?" Claire straightened. "No, we're just finishing up." She looked at Ethan. "Thanks for coming in, Mr. Cole." "Thanks for the update," Ethan said, standing. He walked out, his chest tight, his mind spinning. That night, after Ava was in bed, Ethan sat on the couch with a beer he wasn't drinking and stared at his phone. He wanted to text Claire. He wanted to tell her that the conference had messed him up, that seeing her in teacher mode made everything worse because it reminded him how good she was at this, how much she cared. But he didn't. Instead, he opened his messages with Jenna. "I saw Claire today, parent-teacher conference." The reply came almost immediately. "How was it?" "Confusing." "Good confusing or bad confusing?" "Both." "Ethan, use your words." Ethan smiled despite himself. "She said Ava's doing great, but she also said I seem stressed." "Are you stressed?" "Maybe." "Because of her?" "Partly." "This is so messy." "I know. But you still like her." "Yeah." "Then hang in there. 9 months isn't forever." Ethan set his phone down. 9 months wasn't forever, but it sure felt like it. November brought rain and the kind of cold that seeped into your bones. Ava started complaining about getting up early, and Ethan started drinking more coffee than was probably healthy. Drop-off became routine, polite, distant. And then one morning, everything shifted. Ethan was halfway down the hallway when he heard Ava's voice, sharp and distressed. "No! Stop it!" He turned and saw Ava standing near her cubby, tears streaming down her face. Another girl was holding Ava's backpack, laughing. Ethan was moving before he thought about it. "Hey," he said, walking into the classroom. "What's going on?" The other girl dropped the backpack and ran to her desk. Ava grabbed it and clutched it to her chest, still crying. Claire appeared from the hallway, her expression shifting the moment she saw Ava. "What happened?" she asked, kneeling in front of Ava. "She took my backpack," Ava said through her tears, "and she said my drawing was ugly." Claire's jaw tightened. She looked at the other girl. "Emma, is that true?" Emma shrugged. "I was just joking." It's not a joke if it makes someone cry, Claire said firmly. Apologize. Sorry, Emma muttered, not sounding sorry at all. Claire looked at Ava. Do you accept her apology? Ava wiped her eyes and nodded. Good, Claire said. Emma, you're sitting out recess today. We'll talk about this later. Emma's face fell, but she didn't argue. Claire stood and turned to Ethan. Can I talk to you outside? Ethan followed her into the hallway. The door closed behind them and Claire crossed her arms. I'm sorry, she said. That shouldn't have happened. It's not your fault, Ethan said. Kids are jerks sometimes. Yeah, but I should have seen it coming. Emma's been testing boundaries all month. Ethan looked at the door. Is Ava okay in there? She's fine. I'll check on her in a minute. Claire hesitated. Can I ask you something? Sure. Has Ava mentioned Emma before? Ethan thought about it. Not that I remember. Why? Because this isn't the first time Emma's targeted her. Nothing major, just little things. But I'm starting to think it's a pattern. Ethan's jaw tightened. What do I need to do? Nothing yet, Claire said. I'm handling it. But I wanted you to know so you can talk to Ava at home. Make sure she knows she can tell you if something's bothering her. I always tell her that. I know, Claire said. But sometimes kids need to hear it more than once. Ethan nodded. Thanks for telling me. Of course. They stood there for a moment, and Ethan realized how close they were standing. Close enough that he could see the faint freckles on her nose, the way her eyes softened when she looked at him. I should get back, Claire said quietly. Yeah. But neither of them moved. Ethan, I know, he said. We're waiting, I know. Claire's expression flickered with something he couldn't name. This is harder than I thought it would be. For me too. I don't regret it though, she said. Waiting, I don't regret it. Me neither, Claire smiled, small and sad. Then she turned and went back into the classroom. Ethan stood there for a moment longer before walking away. That night, Ethan sat Ava down after dinner. Hey, Bug, can we talk? Ava looked up from her coloring. About what? About school. Ms. Hartley told me what happened with Emma this morning. Ava's face fell. I don't want to talk about it. I know, but I need to make sure you're okay. I'm fine. Ava, I said I'm fine. Ava's voice cracked, and fresh tears started rolling down her cheeks. Ethan's chest tightened. He knelt in front of her. Hey, it's okay. You're allowed to be upset. She said my drawing was ugly, Ava said, her voice small, and that I'm a baby because I still cry sometimes. Ethan felt anger flash through him, hot and sharp. Emma's wrong. You're not a baby, and your drawings are beautiful. But she's popular, Ava said. All the other kids like her. That doesn't make her right. Ava wiped her eyes. I don't want to go to school tomorrow. I know, Bug, but you have to. Why? Because you're stronger than Emma, and because running away doesn't solve anything. Ava didn't look convinced. Tell you what, Ethan said. If Emma does anything else, you tell Ms. Hartley right away, okay? Okay? And if you don't want to tell Ms. Hartley, you tell me. Deal? Ava nodded. Deal. Ethan pulled her into a hug and she buried her face in his shoulder. I love you, Bug, he said. I love you too, Daddy. Later that night, after Ava was asleep, Ethan's phone buzzed. I wanted to check in. How's Ava doing? Ethan stared at the message. He should keep it professional, short, polite. Instead, he typed, She's okay. Upset, but okay. She said Emma called her a baby. That girl is going on my list. Ethan smiled. You have a list? Every teacher does. Emma just made the top 5. How are you doing? Ethan hesitated. Angry, helpless. The usual parent stuff. You're not helpless. You're doing everything right. Ava's lucky to have you. Ethan's throat tightened. Thanks. I mean it. He stared at the screen for a long moment before typing. This is really hard, Claire. I know. But we're doing the right thing. Aren't we? Ethan wanted to say yes. He wanted to believe it. But sitting alone in his living room, missing someone he couldn't have, it didn't feel right. It just felt lonely. Yeah, he typed. We are. December came with snow and holiday decorations that turned the school into something out of a catalog. Ava was obsessed with the giant tree in the main hallway and insisted on stopping to look at it every morning. "It's the same tree as yesterday," Ethan said one morning. "But it's pretty," Ava said, staring up at it. "It is pretty," Claire said from behind them. Ethan turned. Claire was holding a stack of papers, her cheeks flushed from the cold. "Morning," Ethan said. "Morning." She looked at Ava. "Ready for the holiday concert rehearsal today?" Ava's eyes lit up. "Yes!" "Good. We're practicing your song right after lunch." Ava ran ahead into the classroom and Ethan was left standing with Claire. "Holiday concert?" he asked. "Next Friday," Claire said. "Didn't you get the flyer?" "Probably. I don't always read the flyers." Claire laughed. "You should. It's going to be adorable. The kids have been working really hard." "I'll be there." "Good." Claire shifted the papers in her arms. "Ava's been doing better, by the way. I haven't seen any more issues with Emma." "That's good." "Yeah." Claire looked at him, and for a moment her professional mask slipped. "I miss talking to you." Ethan's heart stuttered. "Claire, I know," she said quickly. "I'm not saying we should change anything. I miss it, that's all." "I miss it too." They stood there, close enough to touch but not touching, and Ethan felt the weight of every unsaid thing between them. "I should go," Claire said finally. "Yeah." She walked into the classroom and Ethan walked away, his chest aching. The holiday concert was exactly as adorable as Claire had promised. Ava stood in the front row, wearing a red dress and a crooked headband, singing about snowflakes with the kind of enthusiasm only first graders could muster. Ethan sat in the audience, filming on his phone, his heart full. When it was over, parents flooded the stage to collect their kids. Ethan found Ava in the crowd, and she threw her arms around him. "Did you see me?" she asked. "I saw you. You were amazing." "Miss Hartley said I was the loudest singer." Ethan laughed. "I believe it." He looked up and saw Claire across the room, talking to another parent. She glanced over and their eyes met. She smiled. Ethan smiled back. And for the first time in months, the waiting didn't feel quite so unbearable. January hit like a reset button nobody asked for. The holiday decorations came down, the tree in the hallway disappeared, and the school settled back into its regular rhythm. Ethan found himself counting the months left in the school year like a prisoner marking days on a cell wall. 4 more months. He could do 4 more months, most days anyway. "Daddy, I need you to sign this," Ava said one morning, shoving a paper at him while he was trying to make coffee. Ethan squinted at it. "What is it?" "Field trip permission slip. We're going to the Science Museum." "When?" "Next Friday." Ethan grabbed a pen and signed it without reading the details. "There? Done." "Ms. Hartley said parents can come if they want to." Ethan paused mid-sip. "She did?" "Yeah, she needs chaperones." Ava looked up at him hopefully. "Can you come?" Every instinct told him to say no. Spending an entire day with Claire in a professional setting sounded like torture. But Ava was looking at him with those wide eyes, and he'd never been able to say no to her. "Sure, Bug. I'll come." Ava squealed and threw her arms around him. "Thank you." Ethan hugged her back, already regretting his decision. That afternoon, he got an email from the school confirming his spot as a chaperone. He'd be assigned a group of 5 students, and the day would run from 9 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. 5 hours. He could survive 5 hours. His phone buzzed that night while he was washing dishes. "Thanks for volunteering. I know field trips aren't everyone's idea of fun." Ethan dried his hands and typed back. Ava asked, "I couldn't say no. She's lucky to have you. I'll try to make it as painless as possible." Ethan smiled. "I'm counting on it." The day of the field trip arrived cold and gray. Ethan met Ava at the school, where a yellow bus was already idling in the parking lot. Kids were lined up, buzzing with excitement, and Claire was standing near the bus door with a clipboard. She looked up when Ethan approached, and something flickered in her expression. "Mr. Cole?" she said. "Glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it," Ethan said. Claire handed him a name tag and a list of students. "You've got Ava, Emma, and 3 others. Try to keep them together, especially in the exhibits. The museum gets crowded." Ethan glanced at the list and froze. Emma? Is that a problem? No, Ethan said, though his jaw was tight. It's fine. Claire studied him. If you're not comfortable, it's fine, Ethan repeated. I can handle it. Claire didn't look convinced, but she nodded. Okay, just let me know if there's an issue. The bus ride to the museum was loud and chaotic. Ava sat next to Ethan, chattering about which exhibit she wanted to see, while Emma sat a few rows back with her friend, whispering and giggling. Ethan tried not to think about the fact that he was responsible for the kid who'd made his daughter cry. When they arrived, Claire gathered everyone in the museum lobby and went over the rules. Stay with your group. No running, no touching exhibits unless they're marked interactive. And most importantly, Claire said, looking directly at the kids, listen to your chaperone. They're in charge. The kids nodded, though Ethan doubted half of them were actually listening. Claire split everyone into groups, and Ethan found himself standing with 5 first graders, all staring up at him like he was supposed to know what to do. Okay, he said. Where do you guys want to start? Dinosaurs, one kid yelled. Space, another shouted. I want to see the butterflies, Ava said. Emma rolled her eyes. Butterflies are boring. Ethan took a breath. We'll see everything, but we're starting with dinosaurs. The dinosaur exhibit was massive, with towering skeletons and interactive displays. The kids ran from one exhibit to the next, and Ethan did his best to keep them all in sight. Mr. Cole, look! Ava tugged on his sleeve, pointing at a triceratops skull. It's huge! It is, Ethan said, smiling. Can I touch it? Does it say you can touch it? Ava checked the sign. No. Then no. Emma appeared beside them, arms crossed. My dad took me here last year. I've already seen all this stuff. That's nice, Emma, Ethan said, trying to keep his tone neutral. It's kind of babyish, don't you think? Emma said, looking at Ava. Ava's face fell, and Ethan felt his patience snap. Emma, he said, crouching down to her level, if you're bored, you can stay close to me and be quiet, but you're not going to ruin this for everyone else. Got it? Emma blinked, surprised. I wasn't... Got it, Ethan repeated, firmer this time. Emma nodded, her face flushing. Good. Ethan stood and took Ava's hand. Come on, Bug. Let's go see the space exhibit. They spent the next hour moving through the museum. The kids were surprisingly well behaved, and even Emma stayed quiet after Ethan's lecture. Around noon, Claire found them in the butterfly exhibit. How's it going? She asked. Good, Ethan said. No major disasters. Claire glanced at the kids who were all watching butterflies land on fake flowers. They seem happy. They are. Ethan hesitated. Emma tried to start something earlier, but I shut it down. Claire's expression tightened. What happened? She called the dinosaur exhibit babyish right in front of Ava. And I told her to knock it off. Claire looked at him for a long moment. Thank you. For what? For standing up for Ava and for not making it a bigger deal than it needed to be. Ethan shrugged. She's a kid. She was testing me. Still, Claire said, not every parent would have handled it that well. They stood there, watching the kids, and Ethan felt the familiar ache settle in his chest. I miss this, he said quietly. Claire looked at him. Miss what? Talking to you. Without all the rules. Claire's expression softened. I miss it too. How much longer do we have to do this? 4 months, Claire said. Give or take. Feels like forever. I know. One of the kids called Claire's name and she turned away. Ethan watched her go, then went back to wrangling his group. By the time they got back to the school, Ethan was exhausted. The kids piled off the bus and parents started arriving to pick them up. Claire stood near the entrance, clipboard in hand, checking kids off as they left. Thanks for today, she said when Ethan walked past with Ava. No problem. You're good with kids, you know. Ethan smiled. I've had practice. Claire's eyes lingered on him for a moment. Yeah, you have. That night, after Ava was in bed, Ethan's phone buzzed. Today was nice, even with the chaos. Ethan smiled. It was. Even with Emma. You handled her well, better than I would have. Doubt that. I mean it. You're patient, calm. She needed that. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. He settled on, Thanks. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever regret this? Waiting? Ethan stared at the message. He thought about the field trip, about standing in the butterfly exhibit watching Claire with the kids, about how natural she looked, how right. No, he typed. Do you? No, but sometimes I wish it didn't have to be this hard. Me too. 4 more months, 4 more months. February brought Valentine's Day, which meant the kids were hyped up on sugar and couldn't sit still. Claire had them make cards for their parents, and Ava came home with one covered in glitter and stickers. I made this for you, she said, handing it to Ethan. He opened it. Inside, in wobbly handwriting, it said, I love you, Daddy. You are the best. Ethan's throat tightened. Thanks, Bug. I love it. Miss Hartley helped me with the spelling. She did a good job. Ava beamed. That night, Ethan set the card on the fridge right next to Ava's drawings and school photos. He stared at it for a long time, thinking about how much his life had changed in the last 6 years, and how much more it might change in the next 4 months. March came with warmer weather and the first signs of spring. Ava started talking about the end-of-year party, and Ethan started thinking about what came after. After the school year ended. After Claire wasn't Ava's teacher anymore. After they didn't have to wait. His phone buzzed one evening while he was cooking dinner. I've been thinking. Ethan set down the spatula. About? About what happens when the school year ends. Ethan's heart rate picked up. Yeah? I want to make sure we're on the same page. Because if this is just, I don't know, if you're not actually interested, I need to know. Ethan stared at the message, his chest tight. He typed, I'm interested. I've been interested since the night we met. The reply came fast. Good. Because I am too, and I don't want to waste any more time once we don't have to. Ethan smiled. Neither do I. Okay then, 2 more months. 2 more months. April arrived with rain and the kind of restless energy that comes with knowing something is almost over. Ava started bringing home papers about summer camp and next year's teacher assignments, and Ethan felt time speeding up. Ms. Hartley said we're having a field day, Ava announced one morning. What's field day? It's when we play games outside and get prizes. Sounds fun. Can you come? Ethan hesitated. He'd already taken time off for the field trip, but Ava was looking at him with those eyes again. When is it? Next Thursday. I'll see what I can do. Ava hugged him. You're the best. Ethan ended up taking the morning off, and when he arrived at the school, the playground was set up with different stations. Kids were running relay races, tossing beanbags, and playing tug-of-war. Claire was in the middle of it all, whistle around her neck, directing traffic. She saw Ethan and waved. Mr. Cole, glad you could make it. We need someone to run the water balloon toss station. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Water balloons? Yep, the kids love it. Ethan spent the next hour handing out water balloons and watching first graders soak each other. It was chaotic and messy and loud, and he couldn't remember the last time he'd had this much fun. Ava ran up to him at one point, drenched and grinning. Daddy, did you see? I didn't drop mine. I saw. You're a pro. She ran off, and Ethan went back to filling balloons. At the end of the event, Claire walked over, looking tired but happy. Thanks for helping, she said. No problem. That was actually kind of fun. Kind of? Okay, really fun. Claire smiled. You're good at this, you know, the whole parent-volunteer thing. I'm just here for Ava. I know, but you're good at it anyway. They stood there, and Ethan realized how close they were standing. Close enough that he could see the faint sunburn on her nose, the way her hair was falling out of its ponytail. 1 more month, Claire said quietly. 1 more month, Ethan echoed. And then? And then we figure it out. Claire's smile widened. Yeah, we do. May came fast. The school started winding down, and Ava brought home end-of-year party flyers and report cards. Look, she said, showing Ethan her report card. All A's. Ethan pulled her into a hug. I'm so proud of you, Bug. Miss Hartley said I worked really hard this year. She's right. You did. Ava grinned and ran off to play, and Ethan looked at the report card. At the bottom, in Claire's handwriting, was a note. Ava is a joy to teach. You're doing a great job, Mr. Cole. Ethan's chest felt tight. He folded the report card and set it on the counter, already thinking about what came next. The last day of school was June 3rd. Ethan walked Ava to room 12 one final time, his heart pounding harder than it should have been. Claire was at the door saying goodbye to students as they left for summer. "Bye, Ms. Hartley," Ava said, hugging her. "Bye, Ava. Have a great summer." Ava ran off to join her friends, and Ethan was left standing there. Claire looked at him. "Well, we made it." "We did." "So," Claire said, her voice careful. "What now?" Ethan smiled. "Now we stop waiting." Claire's face lit up. "Yeah? Yeah, good," she said, "because I was really hoping you'd say that." Ethan pulled out his phone. "Same restaurant, Friday night?" Claire laughed. "Same restaurant, 7 o'clock?" 7 o'clock. Ethan walked away, his heart lighter than it had been in months. When Friday came, he showed up at the restaurant 10 minutes early. He was nervous, which was ridiculous. He'd known Claire for 9 months. They'd texted, talked, waited. But this was different. This was real. Claire walked in at exactly 7, wearing a blue dress and a smile that made Ethan forget how to breathe. "Hi," she said. "Hi." They sat down at the same table where they'd met, and for a moment, neither of them said anything. "This is weird, right?" Claire said finally. "Like, good weird, but weird." "Definitely weird," Ethan agreed. "We waited 9 months for this." "We did." "Was it worth it?" Ethan looked at her. At the way she was smiling, at the way she looked at him like he mattered. "Yeah," he said. "It was." Claire reached across the table and took his hand. And for the first time in 9 months, Ethan didn't have to let go. Claire's hand was warm in his, and Ethan realized he'd been waiting for this moment longer than 9 months. Maybe he'd been waiting for it since the night they met, since she'd looked at him like he wasn't broken. "So," Claire said, her thumb brushing against his knuckles, "we're really doing this." "We're really doing this," Ethan confirmed. "I won't lie, I'm a little terrified." Ethan smiled. "Yeah? Yeah. What if we've built this up so much in our heads that the reality can't match it?" "Then we deal with it," Ethan said. "But I don't think that's going to happen." "Why not?" "Because I've been watching you for 9 months. I know how you handle things when a kid's struggling. I know you drink oat milk lattes and read during dinner. I know you care about people more than you probably should." He paused. "I'm not worried about the reality not matching up. I'm worried I won't be enough." Claire's eyes softened. "Ethan, you've been enough this whole time. You think I would have waited 9 months for someone who wasn't?" The waiter appeared, breaking the moment. They ordered without really looking at the menu, both too distracted to care about food. When the waiter left, Claire leaned back in her chair. "Okay, so ground rules." "Ground rules?" "Yeah, because we're doing this backwards. We already know the hard stuff about each other. But we've never actually been on a real date." Ethan thought about it. "You're right. This is technically our second date, but also kind of our first." "Exactly. So let's start fresh. Tell me something I don't know about you." Ethan considered this. "I can't cook. Like, at all. Ava eats a lot of mac and cheese and chicken nuggets." Claire laughed. "That's terrible." "I know, but she's alive and healthy, so I'm counting it as a win." "What else?" "I'm terrified of heights. Won't go near a ladder. Had to hire someone to clean my gutters last fall." "That's adorable." "It's embarrassing." "It's human," Claire said. "Okay, my turn. I'm a terrible driver. I've gotten 3 parking tickets in the last year." "3?" "I know, I'm working on it." She grinned. "Also, I can't stand romantic comedies. Everyone assumes I love them because I'm a woman who teaches first grade, but they drive me crazy." "What do you like?" "Thrillers. The darker, the better." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "I know, it's weird. But I spend all day with 6-year-olds talking about feelings and sharing. By the time I get home, I want to watch something where people are solving murders." "I like you more every minute," Ethan said. Claire's smile widened. "Good, because I'm just getting started." Their food arrived and they ate slowly, talking between bites. Claire told him about growing up in Ohio with 3 brothers, about how she'd always wanted to be a teacher, about the year she'd spent in Boston before moving back. Ethan told her about losing Ava's mom, about the first year of being a single parent when he'd had no idea what he was doing, about the night Ava had learned to ride a bike, and he'd cried harder than she had. "You really love her," Claire said quietly. "She's my whole world." "I know. I saw it every morning at drop-off. The way you'd make sure she had everything, the way you'd watch her until she was inside." Claire paused. "That's when I knew." "Knew what?" "That you were someone worth waiting for." Ethan's chest felt tight. "I almost gave up, you know. In March, I almost texted you and told you I couldn't do it anymore." "What stopped you?" "I thought about that first night, about how you looked at me when I told you about Ava, like she wasn't a complication or a burden, like she was just part of me. And I realized I'd rather wait for someone who saw it that way than settle for someone who didn't." Claire's eyes were shining. "I almost gave up too. In April, after field day when you helped with the water balloons and you were so good with the kids, I went home and cried because I wanted this so badly and it felt so far away. But you didn't give up. Neither did you." They sat there, hands still linked across the table, and Ethan felt something shift. This wasn't just attraction or infatuation. This was real. "Can I ask you something?" Claire said. "Anything." "What do we tell Ava?" Ethan had been thinking about this for weeks. "The truth. That we like each other, that we're going to spend time together and see where it goes." "You think she'll be okay with it?" "I think she'll be thrilled. She's been asking me if I like someone for months." Claire smiled. "She's perceptive. Too perceptive." "When do you want to tell her?" Ethan thought about it. "Soon, but I want to make sure this is solid first. I don't want to introduce her to someone who might not stick around." "I'm sticking around, Ethan." "I know, but I need to be sure, for her sake." Claire nodded. "I understand. We'll take it slow." "Thank you." They finished dinner and walked out into the warm June night. The street was busy with people heading to bars and restaurants, and the air smelled like summer. "Can I walk you to your car?" Ethan asked. "I'd like that." They walked side by side, not touching but close enough that Ethan could feel the electricity between them. When they reached Claire's car, she turned to face him. "I had a really good time tonight," she said. "Me too. Can we do this again?" "Yes, absolutely yes." Claire smiled. "Good. Because I've been waiting 9 months to kiss you, and I don't think I can wait much longer." Ethan's heart stopped. "Then don't." Claire stepped closer, and Ethan met her halfway. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking something fragile. But then Claire's hands found his shoulders, and Ethan pulled her closer, and the kiss deepened into something real and sure and right. When they finally pulled apart, Claire was smiling. "Worth the wait?" Ethan asked. "Definitely worth the wait." They stood there for another moment, neither wanting to leave. Finally, Claire unlocked her car. "Text me when you get home," Ethan said. "I will. You too." Ethan watched her drive away, then walked to his own car feeling lighter than he had in years. When he got home, Jenna was on the couch with Ava, watching a movie. "How was it?" Jenna asked immediately. "It was good." "Just good?" Ethan smiled. "It was really good." Jenna squealed. "I knew it. I knew you two were perfect for each other." "Don't get ahead of yourself," Ethan said, but he was still smiling. Ava looked up from the movie. "Who's perfect for who?" "No one, Bug," Ethan said quickly. "Daddy went on a date," Jenna announced. Ethan shot her a look. "Jenna." "With who?" Ava asked. Ethan sighed. He should have known Jenna wouldn't be able to keep her mouth shut. "With someone I like. But it's new, so we're taking it slow." Ava seemed satisfied with that answer. "Okay, can we finish the movie now?" "Sure, Bug." Jenna stayed until the movie was over, then left with a knowing smile and a whispered, "I want details later." After Ava was in bed, Ethan's phone buzzed. Home safe. Tonight was perfect. Ethan smiled. It really was. "When can I see you again? Tomorrow? Too soon?" "Not soon enough." "You're going to make me fall for you, Ethan Cole." Ethan's heart did something complicated. "Too late. I'm already falling." The next few weeks were a blur of stolen moments and careful planning. They went to dinner twice more, grabbed coffee on a Thursday afternoon, and spent a Saturday walking through a bookstore, arguing good-naturedly about whether thrillers or science fiction were better. Ethan still hadn't told Ava the full truth, but she was starting to notice. "You're happy," she said one morning over breakfast. "I am?" "Yeah, you smile more." Ethan reached over and ruffled her hair. "Maybe I just like hanging out with you." "Maybe," Ava said, unconvinced. By the end of June, Ethan knew he couldn't put it off any longer. He needed to tell Ava about Claire. Not just that he was dating someone, but that it was someone she already knew. He brought it up on a Sunday afternoon when they were sitting on the couch, Ava coloring and Ethan pretending to read a book. "Hey, Bug, can I talk to you about something?" Ava looked up. "Sure." "Remember how I told you I was seeing someone?" "Yeah." "Well, I want you to know who it is, because she's important to me, and you're important to me, and I want you two to know each other." Ava set down her crayon. "Who is it?" "It's Ms. Hartley." Ava's eyes went wide. "My teacher." "Yeah." Ava was quiet for a moment, processing. "So you like my teacher?" "I do." "And she likes you?" "Yeah, she does." Ava thought about this. "Is she going to be my mom?" Ethan's chest tightened. "I don't know, Bug. We're just starting to figure things out. But I wanted you to know, because you're the most important person in my life. And I wouldn't do this if I didn't think it was right." Ava nodded slowly. "I like Ms. Hartley. She's nice." "She is nice. And she gave me extra stickers when I did good on my spelling test." Ethan smiled. "She did?" "Yeah. So I think it's okay if you like her." Relief flooded through him. "You're sure?" "Yeah. But Daddy?" "Yeah, Bug?" "If she's going to be around, can she teach you how to cook? Because I'm getting tired of chicken nuggets." Ethan laughed. "I'll ask her." A week later, Ethan invited Claire over for dinner. He warned her ahead of time that it wouldn't be fancy, and she'd laughed and told him she didn't care. When she arrived, Ava answered the door. "Hi, Ms. Hartley." "Hi, Ava." Claire smiled. "You can call me Claire now if you want, since I'm not your teacher anymore." Ava thought about this. "Okay, hi, Claire." They ate pizza on the couch and watched one of Ava's favorite movies. Claire asked Ava about her summer plans, and Ava talked non-stop about swim lessons and the trip to the zoo Ethan had promised. At one point, Ava fell asleep against Claire's shoulder, and Claire looked at Ethan with an expression he couldn't quite name. "She's wonderful," Claire whispered. "She is. Thank you for letting me be part of this." "Thank you for wanting to be part of it." After Claire left, Ethan carried Ava to bed. She stirred when he set her down. "Daddy?" "Yeah, Bug?" "I like Claire." "Yeah?" "Yeah, she's nice and she smells good." Ethan smiled. "She does, doesn't she?" "Are you going to marry her?" Ethan's heart stuttered. "I don't know, maybe someday." "I hope you do," Ava said sleepily. "Because then I'd have a mom again." Ethan's throat tightened. He kissed her forehead. "Get some sleep, Bug." "Love you, Daddy." "Love you too." July turned into August, and Ethan and Claire fell into a rhythm. They went on dates when Jenna could watch Ava, and they had quiet dinners at Ethan's house when she couldn't. Claire started keeping a toothbrush at his place, and Ethan started keeping coffee creamer at hers. It wasn't perfect. Claire still got nervous about people seeing them together in town, worried about what parents from school might think. Ethan still second-guessed himself, wondering if he was doing right by Ava, if he was moving too fast or not fast enough. But it was real, and that was enough. One Saturday in late August, Claire suggested they all go to the park. Ethan agreed, and they spent the afternoon watching Ava play while they sat on a bench, Claire's hand in his. "I've been thinking," Claire said. "About?" "About next school year. Ava's going to be in second grade. And people are going to know about us, parents, other teachers." Ethan looked at her. "Does that bother you?" "No," Claire said. "Not anymore. I used to be so scared of what people would think, but I'm tired of hiding. I want people to know you're mine." Ethan's heart swelled. "Yours?" "Yeah, if that's okay with you." "It's more than okay." Claire smiled and leaned her head on his shoulder. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." "Me neither." Ava ran over, breathless and grinning. "Claire, can you push me on the swing?" "Of course," Claire said, standing. Ethan watched them walk to the swings together, watched Claire push Ava higher and higher while Ava laughed. and he felt something settle in his chest. This was it. This was the life he'd been waiting for without even knowing it. Later that night, after Ava was asleep, Claire stayed late. They sat on the couch, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her. "I love you," Ethan said. Claire looked up at him, her eyes bright. "What?" "I love you. I've probably loved you since that first night at the restaurant, but I definitely love you now." Claire's smile was blinding. "I love you too." They kissed, and it felt like a promise, like the start of something neither of them had been looking for, but both of them needed. When Claire finally left, Ethan stood in the doorway, watching her drive away, and he thought about how far he'd come since that disastrous date with Monica. He thought he was fine on his own. He thought Ava was enough, that he didn't need anyone else. But Claire had shown him something different. She'd shown him that love didn't mean replacing what he had. It meant adding to it. And he was ready for that. 3 months later, on a crisp October afternoon, Ethan took Claire back to the restaurant where they'd met. They sat at the same table, ordered the same drinks, and talked about everything and nothing. "Do you ever think about that night?" Claire asked. "All the time." "Me too. I almost didn't come here that night. I almost went straight home." "I'm glad you didn't." "Me too." Claire paused. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Where do you see this going? Us, I mean." Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. "I see it going everywhere. I see you meeting my family. I see Ava calling you something other than Claire someday. I see us figuring out this messy, complicated, beautiful life together." Claire's eyes were shining. "I see that too." "Good. Because I'm in this, Claire. All the way." "So am I." They left the restaurant hand in hand, and when they got to Claire's car, Ethan pulled a small box from his pocket. "What's this?" Claire asked. "Open it." Claire opened the box and found a simple silver bracelet inside. Engraved on it was a single word: worth it. "Ethan, you said you were worth waiting for," Ethan said. "And you were. You are. This is just a reminder." Claire slipped the bracelet on, then pulled him into a kiss that tasted like promises and second chances. When they pulled apart, she was crying. "Happy tears?" Ethan asked. "The happiest." They stood there under the streetlights, holding each other, and Ethan thought about the version of himself who'd walked away from Monica that night. The version who'd been angry and hurt and convinced he'd never find someone who understood. He'd been wrong, and he'd never been so grateful to be wrong in his life. The bracelet caught the light as Claire turned her wrist, and Ethan watched her face transform from surprise to something deeper, something that made his chest ache in the best way. "You kept the napkin, didn't you?" Claire asked, her voice thick with emotion. Ethan smiled. "Still have it, in my wallet." That's incredibly sentimental for someone who claimed he was bad at this. "I never said I was bad at it. I said I was out of practice." Claire laughed through her tears. "There's a difference?" "Apparently." They stood there on the sidewalk, neither wanting to let go, until a group of teenagers walked past and one of them yelled, "Get a room!" which made Claire laugh and bury her face in Ethan's shoulder. "I should probably go," she said, but she didn't move. "Probably." "Ava's with Jenna?" "Until 9. Claire checked her watch. "It's 7:30. "It is." "So we have time." "We do." Claire looked up at him. "Your place or mine?" "Yours is closer. Yours has better coffee." "Mine it is." They drove separately, but Ethan kept glancing in his rearview mirror at Claire's headlights following him, and every time he did, he smiled. When they got to his place, Claire parked behind him and they walked to the door together. "I can't believe we're doing this," Claire said as Ethan unlocked the door. "Doing what?" "This. Us. Normal couple things without looking over our shoulders. Is it weird?" "It's perfect." Inside, Ethan made coffee while Claire wandered around the living room, looking at the photos on the walls. Most of them were of Ava, but there were a few of Ethan and Jenna, one of Ethan's parents. "Is this Ava's mom?" Claire asked, stopping in front of a frame on the bookshelf. Ethan came over, 2 mugs in hand. It was a photo from before Ava was born, Sarah laughing at something off camera, her hair blowing in the wind. "Yeah, that's Sarah." Claire studied the photo. "She was beautiful." "She was." "Do you still miss her?" Ethan thought about how to answer that. Yes and no. I miss who she was. I miss the life we were supposed to have. But I don't miss her the way I used to. The grief isn't as sharp anymore. Does Ava ask about her? Sometimes, less than she used to. I think she's starting to forget, which kills me, but I also think it's natural. She was only 2 when Sarah died. Claire set down her coffee and took Ethan's hand. You know I'm not trying to replace her, right? I know. Because I can't. I won't. She'll always be Ava's mom. I know, Ethan said again. And I love you for understanding that. Claire squeezed his hand. Good. Because I want to be part of this family, Ethan. But only if there's room for me. There's room. There's been room since the night we met. I just didn't know it yet. They sat on the couch, Claire tucked into Ethan's side, and talked about everything they'd avoided talking about during those 9 months of waiting. Claire told him about her ex-boyfriend who'd wanted her to quit teaching and move to Seattle with him, about how she'd chosen her career and hadn't regretted it until she'd spent 3 years alone wondering if she'd made the wrong choice. Ethan told her about the first year after Sarah died, about how he'd barely held it together, about the night he'd broken down in Ava's room because he didn't know how to braid her hair, and she'd cried because all the other girls at preschool had braids. I called my mom at midnight, Ethan said, begged her to teach me. She drove over in her pajamas, and we spent 2 hours practicing on one of Ava's dolls until I could do it without completely screwing it up. Claire was smiling, but her eyes were wet. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. It was pathetic. It was love. I guess it was. At 8:45, Ethan's phone buzzed. Jenna, Ava's getting sleepy. Want me to put her to bed there, or should I bring her home? Ethan looked at Claire. Jenna's asking if she should put Ava to bed at her place or bring her back. What do you want to do? Ethan wanted to keep sitting here with Claire, wanted to stretch this night out as long as possible. But he also wanted to kiss his daughter goodnight. Bring her back, he typed. Be there in 15. They'll be here in 15 minutes, Ethan said. Claire nodded and started to get up, but Ethan caught her hand. Stay, please. You sure? Yeah. Ava should get used to seeing you here. Okay, but I should probably fix my face. I've been crying for like 20 minutes. You look beautiful. I look like a mess. A beautiful mess. Claire laughed and went to the bathroom while Ethan cleaned up the coffee mugs. He heard the water running, heard Claire muttering something to herself, and smiled. When Jenna's car pulled up, Ethan opened the door before she could knock. Ava was half asleep on Jenna's shoulder. Hey, Bug, Ethan said softly. Daddy? Ava mumbled, reaching for him. Ethan took her, and she immediately buried her face in his neck. Jenna gave him a knowing look when she saw Claire coming down the hallway. Well, well, Jenna said. This is cozy. Don't start, Ethan warned. I'm not starting anything. I'm just observing. Hi, Jenna, Claire said. Hi, Claire. You know, I'm the one who set Ethan up on that blind date. So technically, I'm responsible for all of this. Claire smiled. Then I owe you a thank you. You absolutely do. I accept payment in coffee and gossip. Jenna, Ethan said, go home. Jenna laughed and kissed Ava's forehead. Night, sweetheart. Night, lovebirds. She left, and Ethan carried Ava to her room. Claire followed, hovering in the doorway while Ethan got Ava into her pajamas and tucked her in. Claire, Ava said sleepily. Yes, sweetie? Are you staying? Claire glanced at Ethan, uncertain. Not tonight, but I'll see you soon, okay? Okay. Ava's eyes were already closing. Love you. The words hung in the air, and Claire's breath caught. Love you too, Ava. Ethan kissed Ava's forehead and turned on her nightlight, and they both slipped out of the room. In the hallway, Claire leaned against the wall, her hand over her heart. She said she loves me, Claire whispered. She does. Ethan, I know. It's a lot. It's everything. Ethan pulled her close. You don't have to say it back. Not until you're ready. I'm ready, Claire said. I love her. I love both of you. I have for months. Ethan kissed her, slow and deep, and when they pulled apart, Claire was smiling through fresh tears. I'm a mess, she said. You keep saying that because I keep crying. Because you're happy. I am. I really, really am. Claire left a little after 10, and Ethan stood in the doorway watching her drive away, the same way he had a dozen times before. But this time felt different. This time he knew she'd be back. The next few months unfolded like a story Ethan hadn't dared to write. Claire started spending weekends at his place, and Ava stopped asking if Claire was staying and started assuming she would be. They had family dinners on Sundays, went to the park on Saturday mornings, and developed routines that felt natural and easy and right. It wasn't perfect. Ava had a meltdown one night because Claire suggested a different bedtime story than usual, and Ethan had to remind himself that change was hard for kids, even good change. Claire had a moment of panic when she ran into a parent from school at the grocery store, and the parent asked if she was Ethan's girlfriend, and she'd stuttered through an answer before finally just saying yes. But they worked through it. They talked. They adjusted. They learned each other's rhythms and boundaries and needs. In November, Claire brought up Thanksgiving. "What are you guys doing?" she asked one Sunday morning while they were making pancakes. Ava was in the living room, supposedly watching cartoons, but actually building an elaborate fort out of couch cushions. "Usually just me and Ava. My parents live in Florida now, and Jenna goes to her in-laws. So it's quiet." "Very." Claire flipped a pancake, not looking at him. "Would you want to come to my parents' place? They live about an hour from here. My brothers will be there with their families, so it'll be chaos, but you want us to meet your parents? Is that crazy? It feels crazy. But also, I've been telling my mom about you for months, and she keeps asking when she gets to meet you, and I figured Thanksgiving might be, Yes." Claire looked up. "Yes?" "Yeah, we'd love to come." "Really? Really?" "As long as you're okay with Ava possibly traumatizing your entire family." Claire laughed. "My nephews are terrors. Ava will fit right in." Thanksgiving at Claire's parents' house was exactly as chaotic as promised. Her mom was warm and immediately obsessed with Ava. Her dad was quiet but kind, and her brothers spent most of the day arguing about football while their kids ran wild. "This is a lot," Ethan said at one point, finding Claire in the kitchen. "I know. I'm sorry." "No, I mean, it's great. Ava's having the time of her life." They looked through the doorway to where Ava was playing with Claire's nephews, all of them covered in cranberry sauce and laughing. "She fits," Claire said softly. "She does." Claire's mom came into the kitchen, a knowing smile on her face. "So, Ethan, when are you going to make an honest woman out of my daughter?" "Mom!" Claire's face went red. "What? I'm just asking." Ethan grinned. "When she's ready." Claire's mom looked delighted. "Good answer." After dinner, Ethan and Claire took a walk around the neighborhood while Ava stayed inside with Claire's parents. The air was cold and crisp, and their breath came out in clouds. "I'm sorry about my mom," Claire said. "She has no filter." "I liked her. She basically proposed for you." "I noticed." Claire stopped walking. "Ethan, we haven't talked about this." "About what?" "About the future, long term. We've been taking it day by day, which is great, but you want to know where I see this going?" "Yeah." Ethan took her hands. "I see it going everywhere, Claire. I told you that before. I meant it then, and I mean it now. I want to wake up next to you. I want Ava to have you in her life. I want all of it." "Even the scary parts?" "Especially the scary parts." Claire's eyes were shining. "I want that too. All of it. The messy, complicated, beautiful all of it." "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." "Me neither." They kissed under the streetlights, and Ethan thought about how far they'd come from that first night at the restaurant, how they'd waited and hoped and chosen each other over and over again. December brought snow and the second grade winter concert. Ava had a solo 2 whole lines about snowflakes, and she practiced them constantly until Ethan could recite them in his sleep. "What if I forget the words?" Ava asked the night before the concert. "You won't forget," Ethan said. "But what if I do?" "Then you'll make up new words, and no one will know the difference." Ava seemed satisfied with that answer. The concert was packed with parents and grandparents and siblings, and Ethan sat in the third row with Claire beside him. When Ava's class took the stage, Claire reached for his hand. "She's going to do great," Claire whispered. "I know." Ava nailed her solo, and Ethan clapped so hard his hands hurt. Afterward, in the crowded hallway, Ava ran up to them, her face flushed with excitement. "Did you see? Did you see me?" "We saw you, Bug. You were perfect." Ava threw her arms around both of them, and other parents smiled as they walked past. A few of them recognized Claire, said hello, made polite conversation. No one seemed shocked or scandalized that Claire was there with Ethan and Ava. It felt normal. It felt right. That night, after Ava was in bed, Claire stayed late again. They sat on the couch, her head on his shoulder, and Ethan realized he wanted this every night. Not just sometimes, not just weekends. Every night. "Move in with us," he said. Claire sat up. "What?" "Move in, with me and Ava. Your lease is up in February, right?" "Yeah, but Ethan, I know it's fast. I know we've only been officially together for 6 months. But it doesn't feel fast. It feels like we've been doing this forever." Claire was staring at him. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. I want you here. Ava wants you here. This is your home as much as it is ours." "What if it doesn't work? What if we drive each other crazy?" "Then we figure it out. But Claire, I don't want to keep saying goodnight and watching you leave. I want to go to sleep next to you and wake up next to you. I want all the boring everyday stuff. I want it all." Claire's eyes filled with tears for the 100th time that month. "Yes." "Yeah?" "Yes. I'll move in." Ethan kissed her, and she kissed him back, and when they pulled apart, they were both grinning. "We should tell Ava," Claire said. "Tomorrow. Let's tell her tomorrow." But Ava, being Ava, figured it out on her own. The next morning at breakfast, she looked at Claire and said, "Are you moving in?" Claire nearly choked on her coffee. I heard you and Daddy talking last night." Ethan sighed. "You were supposed to be asleep." "I was thirsty." "So you just stood in the hallway listening?" Ava shrugged, completely unrepentant. "Are you moving in or not?" Claire looked at Ethan, then back at Ava. "Would that be okay with you?" "Yes." Ava bounced in her chair. "Can we paint your room? And can we get a cat? Claire, can we please get a cat?" "We're not getting a cat," Ethan said. "Why not?" "Because I said so." "That's not a good reason." Claire was laughing, and Ethan realized this was his life now. Negotiating with a 7-year-old about pets while the woman he loved drank coffee at his kitchen table. It was chaotic and messy, and nothing like he'd planned. It was perfect. Claire moved in at the end of February. It took 3 trips in a rented truck, and Ava insisted on helping, which mostly meant she got in the way while looking adorable doing it. "This is the last box," Claire said, setting it down in the bedroom. Ethan looked around. Claire's books were on the shelf next to his. Her clothes were in the closet. Her toothbrush was in the bathroom. It was real. "You okay?" Claire asked. "Yeah, just taking it in." "Having second thoughts?" "Not even a little bit." That night they had dinner as a family. Claire made pasta, which was significantly better than anything Ethan had ever attempted, and Ava declared it the best meal she'd ever had. "Better than Aunt Jenna's?" Ethan asked. "Way better. Don't tell her I said that." "Your secret's safe with me." After dinner, they watched a movie together, all 3 of them squished on the couch under a blanket. Ava fell asleep halfway through, her head on Claire's lap, and Claire ran her fingers through Ava's hair absently. "This is nice," she whispered. "It is. I can't believe this is my life now." "Believe it." Claire looked at him, and the love in her eyes was so clear it took his breath away. "I do." Spring came, and with it, Ava's 8th birthday. They threw a party in the backyard with 15 screaming kids, a bounce house, and enough cake to feed an army. Jenna came, along with Claire's parents and brothers, and it felt like 2 families merging into one. "This is insane," Ethan said at one point, watching kids run wild while Claire tried to organize a game that no one was paying attention to. "It's perfect," Jenna said. "Look at you, you're happy." "I am." "And Claire's good for you, for both of you." "She is." Jenna smiled. "I'm glad you didn't give up. After that disaster with Monica, I was worried you were done trying. I almost was. But then I met Claire and everything changed. You know what you need to do now, right?" Ethan looked at her. "What?" "Marry her, idiot." Ethan had been thinking about it for weeks. He'd looked at rings online, had imagined how he'd ask, had played out a dozen different scenarios in his head, but he hadn't done anything about it. "I don't know if she's ready," he said. "Have you asked her?" "Not directly." "Then how do you know?" Ethan didn't have an answer for that. That night, after everyone had left and Ava was asleep, Ethan and Claire sat on the back porch, exhausted but happy. "That was a good party," Claire said. "It was chaos." "The best kind of chaos." Ethan took her hand. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Are you happy? Here with us?" Claire looked at him, surprised. "Of course I am. Why would you even ask that?" "Because I want to make sure. Because I'm about to do something, and I need to know you're ready." "Ethan, what are you—" Ethan pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it. Inside was a simple diamond ring, nothing flashy, but beautiful in its simplicity. Claire's hand flew to her mouth. "I know we said we'd take it slow," Ethan said. "And we have. But Claire, I don't want to waste any more time. I want to marry you. I want to build a life with you. I want to wake up every morning knowing you're mine and I'm yours. So what do you say?" Claire was crying, but she was smiling too. "Yes." "Yeah?" "Yes, Ethan. 1,000 times yes." Ethan slipped the ring on her finger, and Claire kissed him, and somewhere inside the house they heard Ava's voice. "Did you ask her? Did she say yes?" They both laughed, and Ethan called back, "You're supposed to be asleep." "I was, but I heard you guys talking. So did she say yes?" Claire wiped her eyes and called back, "I said yes." There was a squeal from inside, and then Ava came running out in her pajamas, throwing herself at both of them. "We're getting married!" she shouted. "We are," Claire said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Can I be in the wedding?" "Obviously." "Can we get a cat now?" "No," Ethan said. It was worth a shot. They sat there on the porch, the three of them, and Ethan thought about the night he'd walked out of that restaurant, angry and hurt and convinced he'd never find someone who understood. He thought about Claire sitting alone at her table, reading a book, looking like someone who wouldn't call his daughter baggage. He thought about 9 months of waiting, of stolen glances and careful distance and hoping. And he thought about now, about this moment, with the woman he loved wearing his ring, and the daughter he adored bouncing with excitement. It had been worth it, all of it, every difficult conversation, every moment of doubt, every time he'd wanted to give up but hadn't. It had been worth it. Because this, right here, was everything. The bracelet caught the streetlight as Claire held up her hand, admiring it from different angles while tears streaked down her cheeks. Ethan had never seen anyone cry this much over something he'd done, and it made his chest feel too tight and too full all at once. "I can't believe you kept the napkin," Claire said again, like she couldn't quite process it. "It's in my wallet right now if you want proof." "You're serious?" "Dead serious. Right behind my license." Claire laughed and wiped her eyes with the back of her free hand. "That's the most ridiculous and romantic thing I've ever heard." "I'm a complicated guy." "You really are." She looked at him, and something in her expression shifted. "Ethan, I need to tell you something." His stomach dropped. "Okay." "That night we met, I almost didn't go to that restaurant. I'd had the worst week at school. This kid's parents were threatening to sue because I'd given their son a timeout, and my principal called me in to discuss whether I was being too strict, and I just wanted to go home and cry into a pint of ice cream." "What made you go?" "My best friend from college. She called and said I looked pathetic in my apartment alone on a Friday night, and she was probably right. So I went. And I sat at that table telling myself I'd have 1 glass of wine and leave." Claire paused. "And then you walked in, and you looked so defeated, and then you came back inside, and I don't know, something about you just felt right." "Even when I was a mess?" "Especially when you were a mess. Because you were real. You weren't trying to impress me or be someone you weren't. You were just a dad who'd had a terrible date and wanted to sit with someone who didn't suck." Ethan laughed. "That's a low bar." "Maybe. But you cleared it spectacularly." They stood there on the sidewalk outside the restaurant where everything had started, and Ethan felt the weight of 9 months of waiting finally lift off his shoulders. This was it. This was real. No more rules, no more careful distance, no more watching her drive away and wondering when he'd see her again. "Come home with me," he said. Claire's eyes widened slightly. "Ethan, not like that. I mean, yes, like that, but also not just that. I just don't want tonight to end yet. Ava's with Jenna until 9, right?" "Yeah." Claire checked her watch. "It's 7:45. We have time. For what? I don't know. Talking. Sitting on my couch. Being normal people on a normal date who don't have to worry about who sees them. Claire's smile was soft. That sounds perfect. They drove separately, Claire following Ethan's car through familiar streets. When they got to his place, Ethan unlocked the door and held it open for her. It wasn't the first time Claire had been to his house, but somehow tonight felt different, more significant. Coffee? He offered. Sure. Ethan moved around the kitchen while Claire wandered through the living room, looking at the photos on the walls like she hadn't seen them before. Most were of Ava at various ages, but there were a few others mixed in. Ethan and Jenna as kids, his parents, and one frame on the bookshelf that Claire stopped in front of. Is this her? She asked quietly. Ethan came over with 2 mugs. The photo was of Sarah, taken a few months before Ava was born. She was laughing at something off camera, her hair catching the sunlight. Yeah, that's Sarah. Claire studied the photo for a long moment. She's beautiful. She was. Do you still think about her a lot? Ethan considered the question. Not the way I used to. The first year after she died, I thought about her constantly. Every decision I made, every time Ava did something new, I'd think about how Sarah should be there to see it. It felt wrong to be happy without her. And now? Now I think about her differently. She's part of our story, part of who Ava is, but she's not the whole story anymore. He looked at Claire. Does that make sense? It makes perfect sense. Claire set down her mug and took his hand. I want you to know something. I'm not trying to replace her. I could never replace her. She's Ava's mom, and she always will be. I know that. Do you? Because I need you to really know it, Ethan. I can love Ava and be part of her life without erasing who came before me. There's room for all of us. Ethan's throat felt tight. How did you get so wise? I teach first graders. You learn a lot about human nature when you're breaking up fights over crayons all day. He laughed and pulled her close. They stood there in his living room, holding each other, and Ethan felt something settle inside him. Something that had been restless and uncertain for 4 years finally found its place. Tell me something I don't know about you, Claire said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. Like what? Anything. We've spent 9 months doing this backwards. I know you're a good dad, and you're terrible at cooking, and you're afraid of heights, but what else? Ethan thought about it. I wanted to be a professional baseball player when I was a kid. Practiced every day from age 7 to 14. What happened? I got hit by a pitch and broke my collarbone. Couldn't throw the same after that. By the time I healed, I'd lost my spot on the team and I'd discovered computers were more interesting anyway. Do you ever regret it? Not even a little bit. I'd probably be a washed-up minor league coach right now instead of working from home in my pajamas. Claire laughed. Okay, my turn. I hate cooking shows. Really? Can't stand them. Everyone acts like making a perfect souffle is this profound achievement, and I'm over here burning toast. You made me pasta last week that was incredible. That's different. That's survival cooking. But those shows where they make everything from scratch with ingredients I can't pronounce? No, thank you. What else? I'm terrified of birds. Ethan pulled back to look at her. Birds? They're unpredictable and they have those weird little feet, and don't even get me started on geese. Geese are demons. This is the best thing I've learned about you all year. Don't mock my trauma. I got chased by a swan when I was 6. A swan? At a petting zoo. It was traumatic. Ethan was laughing so hard he had to sit down. Claire sat next to him, trying to look offended but failing. It's not funny, she insisted. It's a little funny. Fine, it's a little funny. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I missed this. Missed what? This. Just talking. Being us without all the rules and boundaries. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and then Claire said, I need to tell you something else. Ethan tensed slightly. Okay. I'm scared. Of what? Of this. Of us. Of how much I want this to work. She sat up and looked at him. I told you about that parent I dated before. About how it almost destroyed my career. I remember. What I didn't tell you was how much it messed me up. For a long time after that, I convinced myself I couldn't have both. I couldn't have a career I loved and a relationship that mattered. I had to choose. And you chose teaching. I did. And I didn't regret it. Not really. But then I met you and suddenly I wanted both. And that terrified me because what if I couldn't have both? What if I had to choose again? Ethan took her hands. Claire, you don't have to choose. I would never make you choose. I know. Logically, I know that. But there's this voice in my head that keeps saying I'm going to screw this up, that I'm going to get too comfortable and forget to be careful and someone's going to report me to the principal and I'll lose everything. That's not going to happen. You can't know that. You're right, I can't. But I can tell you that we're doing this right. We waited until Ava wasn't your student anymore. We're not hiding. We're being honest with everyone about what this is. And if someone has a problem with it, that's their problem, not yours. Claire's eyes were wet again. When did you become so good at pep talks? I've been practicing on a 7-year-old for 4 years. You pick up a few tricks. She laughed and wiped her eyes. I love you, you know that? I was hoping. I really, really love you. And it scares the hell out of me because I've never felt this way about anyone before. Ethan's heart was doing something complicated in his chest. Not even your ex who wanted you to move to Seattle? Especially not him. What I felt for him was comfortable, safe. This is different. This is terrifying and exhilarating, and I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. What if there is no other shoe? What if there is? Then we deal with it together. But Claire, you can't live your whole life waiting for something bad to happen. Sometimes good things just happen, and they stay good. Claire looked at him for a long moment, and then she kissed him. It started soft, tentative, but quickly became something deeper. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. I should probably go soon, Claire said, though she made no move to get up. Probably. Jenna's going to bring Ava back at 9. Ethan checked his watch. We have 45 minutes. What should we do with 45 minutes? I have a few ideas, Claire laughed. I'm sure you do, but maybe we should just sit here. Talk more. Get used to this being real. Okay. So they sat and talked about everything and nothing. Claire told him about her students from the previous year, about the kid who'd written a story about a superhero named Captain Underpants who saved the world from evil vegetables. Ethan told her about the time Ava had decided she wanted to be a veterinarian and had tried to give their neighbor's cat a checkup, resulting in scratches that took weeks to heal. She's fearless, Claire said. She's reckless. Fearless, Claire repeated. And I love that about her. She reminds me of my youngest brother. He was always getting into trouble as a kid, but it was never malicious. He was just curious about everything. What's he do now? He's a firefighter. Turns out all that reckless energy works well when you're running into burning buildings. Ethan's phone buzzed. Jenna. On our way back, Ava fell asleep in the car, so I'll carry her in. Ethan showed Claire the message. They'll be here in about 10 minutes. I should go then. You don't have to. I know, but I think the first time Ava sees me here this late, it should be planned. Not just me randomly being on your couch. That's probably smart. They stood, and Ethan walked her to the door. On the front step, Claire turned to face him. Thank you for tonight, she said. Thank you for saying yes to coffee 9 months ago. Best decision I ever made. Second best. What's the first? Showing up at that restaurant in the first place. Claire smiled and kissed him one more time. I'll see you tomorrow? Dinner? The 3 of us? Perfect. I'll bring actual food since you can't cook. I can cook, Ethan protested. I just choose not to. Sure, keep telling yourself that. She got in her car and drove away, and Ethan stood on his front step watching her taillights disappear around the corner. 5 minutes later, Jenna's car pulled up. Hey, Ethan said as Jenna carried Ava to the door. Thanks for watching her. Anytime. How was the date? Good. Really good. Jenna's smile was knowing. I can tell. You look different. Different how? Happy? Settled? Like you finally figured something out. Maybe I did. Jenna shifted Ava's weight. She's getting heavy. Let me put her to bed. Ethan followed Jenna inside and watched as she laid Ava gently in her bed. Ava stirred but didn't wake, and Jenna pulled the blanket up to her chin. She's a good kid, Jenna whispered as they walked back to the living room. The best. And Claire's good for both of you. She is, Jenna grabbed her purse. So when are you going to propose? Ethan nearly choked. What? Oh, come on, Ethan. You're not seriously going to pretend you haven't thought about it. I mean, yeah, I've thought about it, but nothing. You love her. She loves you. Ava loves her. What are you waiting for? I don't know. The right time for things to be more settled? Things are never going to be completely settled. That's not how life works. You just have to jump. Ethan thought about that after Jenna left. He sat on his couch in the quiet house, thinking about Claire and Ava, and the life they were building together. And he realized Jenna was right. He was waiting for some perfect moment that was never going to come, because perfect moments didn't exist. Life was messy and complicated, and you just had to jump and hope you landed okay. So he started looking at rings. The next few weeks unfolded in a blur of normal moments that felt extraordinary simply because they were theirs. Claire came over for dinner 3 nights a week. They took Ava to the park on Saturdays. They developed routines and inside jokes and all the small intimacies that came with building a life together. And Ethan kept looking at rings. He finally found one in early November. It was simple, elegant, a single diamond on a white gold band. Nothing flashy, but something Claire would actually wear. He bought it on a Tuesday and spent the rest of the week trying to figure out how to propose. Grand gesture? Quiet moment? Should he involve Ava? The answer came to him on Thursday night when they were all sitting on the couch watching a movie. Ava was between them, her head on Claire's lap, Claire's fingers absently playing with Ava's hair. It was so natural, so effortlessly right, that Ethan's heart actually hurt. This was his family, this was everything he wanted, and he needed to stop overthinking it. Hey, Claire, he said. Can we talk after Ava goes to bed? Claire looked over at him, slightly concerned. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. I just want to talk to you about something. Okay. The rest of the movie was torture. Ethan couldn't focus, couldn't stop his leg from bouncing, couldn't think about anything except the ring in his dresser drawer. When the movie ended, Ava went to brush her teeth without being asked, which was suspicious enough that both Ethan and Claire exchanged glances. She's up to something, Claire said. Definitely. They tucked Ava in together, a routine they'd fallen into without discussing it. Claire read while Ethan turned on the nightlight and adjusted the blankets. Night, Bug, Ethan said. Night, Daddy. Night, Claire. Night, sweetheart. They closed the door and walked back to the living room. Ethan's heart was pounding so hard he was surprised Claire couldn't hear it. So, Claire said, sitting on the couch. What did you want to talk about? Ethan didn't sit. He couldn't. He was too nervous. Okay, so I had this whole speech planned, he started. Claire's eyes widened. Ethan, just let me get through this before I chicken out. He took a breath. 9 months ago, I had the worst date of my life, and I was about to go home and swear off dating forever. But then I saw you sitting at that table, and something made me walk back inside. And I'm so glad I did because these last 9 months have been the best of my life. Ethan, are you… Wait, I'm not done. He pulled the ring box from his pocket, and Claire's hand flew to her mouth. I know this is probably too fast. We've only been officially together for a few months. But Claire, I don't want to waste any more time. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to build a life with you. I want Ava to call you something other than Claire someday, if that's what she wants. I want all of it, with you, for as long as you'll have me. He dropped to one knee and opened the box. Claire Hartley, will you marry me? Claire was crying, but she was also laughing, and she nodded so vigorously that Ethan was worried she might hurt her neck. Yes, she managed. Yes, absolutely yes. Ethan slipped the ring on her finger, and Claire pulled him up and kissed him so hard they both stumbled backward into the couch. I can't believe you just did that, Claire said between kisses. I can't believe you said yes. Are you kidding? I've been hoping you'd ask. Really? Really, I was starting to think I was going to have to propose to you. They were both laughing now, and then they heard a noise from the hallway. They turned to see Ava standing in the doorway in her pajamas, grinning from ear to ear. I knew it, Ava squealed. How long have you been standing there? Ethan asked. Long enough. Can I see the ring? Claire held out her hand, and Ava ran over to examine it. It's so pretty, Ava breathed. Does this mean Claire's going to be my mom? The room went quiet. Claire looked at Ethan, and Ethan looked at Ava. That's up to you, Bug, Ethan said carefully. Claire will be part of our family either way. But what you call her, that's your choice. Ava looked at Claire. Can I call you Mom? Claire's eyes filled with tears again. If you want to, but there's no rush. You can call me Claire as long as you need to. But I want to call you Mom, Ava insisted. Is that okay? I know I already had a mom, but I don't remember her very much. And you're here now, and you're going to marry Daddy, so that makes you my mom too, right? Claire knelt down so she was eye level with Ava. Sweetheart, you can absolutely call me Mom if that's what you want. And you're right, you did have another mom. And she loved you so, so much. And even though she's not here, she'll always be part of you. So you can have two moms, one who's watching over you and one who's here with you. Is that okay? Ava thought about this for a moment, then nodded. Okay, can I tell Aunt Jenna? Ethan laughed. It's 9:30. Aunt Jenna's probably asleep. But she's going to be so excited. We'll tell her tomorrow. Right now, you need to go back to bed. Ava hugged both of them, then ran back to her room. Ethan and Claire stood there in the living room, shell-shocked. Did that just happen? Claire asked. I think it did. She called me Mom. She did. Ethan, Claire's voice broke. I never thought I'd have this. A family. Someone who wanted me to be part of their world. And now I have both of you, and it's so much more than I ever dreamed of. Ethan pulled her close. We're the lucky ones. Trust me. They stood there holding each other, and Ethan thought about how far they'd all come. From that disastrous date with Monica to this moment, standing in his living room with the woman he loved wearing his ring and his daughter calling her Mom. It hadn't been easy. It hadn't been smooth, but it had been worth every single second. The wedding was small, held in Claire's parents' backyard on a warm Saturday in June. Ava was the flower girl and took her job so seriously that she actually counted out the petals to make sure she had enough for the entire aisle. Jenna cried through the whole ceremony. Claire's mom cried. Even Ethan's dad got a little misty-eyed. And when Ethan and Claire said their vows, Ava stood between them, holding both their hands, part of the promise they were making to each other. I promise to love you on the hard days and the easy days, Ethan said. I promise to choose you every single morning. I promise to be your partner in all of this, whatever comes next. Claire's voice was shaky with emotion. I promise to love both of you with everything I have. I promise to show up, even when it's hard. I promise to build a life with you that's messy and real and full of love. They kissed, and everyone cheered, and Ava yelled, "Finally!" which made everyone laugh. At the reception, Ethan found Claire standing alone for a moment, watching their families mingle. Hey, Mrs. Cole, he said. Claire smiled. I'm keeping my name, remember? Mrs. Hartley Cole, then. Better, though that's a mouthful. We'll workshop it, Claire leaned into him. Can you believe this is our life now? Not even a little bit. Me neither. But I'm so glad it is. Ava ran up, her flower girl dress already stained with grass and frosting. Mom! Dad! Aunt Jenna says we can have the leftover cake for breakfast tomorrow. Claire raised an eyebrow. She did she? Yep. We'll see about that. Ava ran off to play with Claire's nephews, and Ethan and Claire were left standing together, watching the people they loved celebrate the family they'd built. You know what I was thinking about earlier? Claire said. What? That first night, when you walked back into the restaurant. If you hadn't done that, none of this would have happened. I almost didn't. I was halfway to my car when I stopped. What made you come back? Ethan thought about it. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't ready to give up yet. Or maybe I saw you sitting there and something told me to take a chance. I'm glad you did. Me too. They stood there as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and Ethan realized he'd stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. He'd stopped bracing for disaster. He'd learned to trust that good things could happen and stay good. And this, right here, was proof. A year later, they were back at the same restaurant for their anniversary. Same table, same corner, same waiter who'd watched their entire story unfold. Can you believe it's been a year, Sierra? Claire asked. Feels like longer, in a good way. I know what you mean, like we've been doing this forever. We kind of have been, just not officially. Their food arrived and they ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. Ava was at Jenna's for the night, giving them a rare evening alone. "I have something to tell you," Claire said as they were finishing dessert. Ethan's stomach dropped. "Okay." "Don't look so worried. It's good news. At least I think it's good news." "Just tell me." Claire took a breath. "I'm pregnant." For a moment, Ethan couldn't process the words. Then they hit him all at once, and he nearly knocked over his water glass. "You're what?" "Pregnant. About 8 weeks. I found out last week, but I wanted to wait until tonight to tell you." "Claire, that's—" Ethan couldn't find the words. "That's incredible. Are you sure?" "I took 4 tests. I'm sure." Ethan was around the table in seconds, pulling her up and hugging her so tightly she squeaked. "Careful," she laughed. "Still need to breathe." "Sorry, I'm just— Wow, we're having a baby." "We are. How do you feel about that?" "Terrified. Excited. Like I might pass out. All of it." Claire laughed. "Same." They sat back down, both grinning like idiots, and Ethan thought about how much his life had changed since that night he'd walked out on Monica. He'd been so convinced he was done that his life was full enough with just him and Ava. But he'd been wrong. There was always room for more love, more family, more life, and he couldn't wait to see what came next. 8 months later, on a snowy February morning, James Robert Cole came into the world screaming at the top of his lungs. Ava was the first person besides Ethan to hold him, and she cried when Claire asked if she wanted to be his big sister. "I'm already his big sister," Ava said, confused. "I mean, officially. If you want, we can start the adoption process, make it legal." Ava's eyes went wide. "You mean I'd really be your daughter? Like, for real?" "You already are my daughter, sweetheart. This would just make it official on paper." Ava looked at Ethan. "Can we do that?" "If you want to." "I want to." And so they did. 6 months later, in a courthouse with Jenna and Claire's parents as witnesses, a judge signed the papers that made Ava officially Claire's daughter. That night, they celebrated with pizza and cake. James and his bouncer, and Ava still clutching her adoption certificate like it was the most precious thing in the world. "We're a real family now," Ava said. "We've always been a real family," Claire corrected gently. "This just makes it official." "I know, but it feels different. Better." Ethan looked around the table at his family, his wife, his daughter, his son. This loud, chaotic, perfectly imperfect family that he'd stumbled into by walking back into a restaurant when he should have driven home. It had started with a terrible date and a moment of impulse. It had survived 9 months of waiting and uncertainty and careful distance. It had grown into something bigger and more beautiful than Ethan had ever thought possible. And sitting there in his kitchen, covered in pizza sauce and surrounded by the people he loved most in the world, Ethan realized he wouldn't change a single thing. Not the waiting, not the uncertainty, not even that disaster of a date with Monica. Because all of it had led him here. To this table, to this family, to this life. And it was perfect.